There we go.
The most important thing for turns and pirouettes. So the assumption with everything that I'm showing is that the handstand is mastered, because that's a whole other topic. And then when we get into like the pirouettes, the giant halves, front giant pirouette, or the elite type turns, one arm turns, that previous element is mastered, because these are very important that whatever you're doing into the turn is done well. Because if you're not doing what you enter the turn, if that has issues, then when you start the turns, the problems will be compounded. There's just a few principles that we're going to talk about. One arm strength is going to be very important. Initiating the turns on the way up, so we finish in handstand, is very important. And then keep in mind, anytime you shorten the body, you cause rotation. So the momentum into the pirouettes, into the turns, that's what's going to cause the momentum is going to cause you to be able to do the turn light, and then you push in order to finish the turn in handstand. If you have a close in the shoulder or the head or the hips or anything that causes a rotation of the body, and you'll miss the handstand go over. So we'll get into that stuff, but just a couple of those small principles. The swing half, I'm going to talk about a little bit. This is the first turn that you're going to teach. It's a little bit problematic, and I'll get into that, but from the swing half for tops and compulsories, and then you have turns that are required for optionals all the way to elite. So it's a very important element to be able to master. It's very prone to deduction because you can get angle deductions. So the code, of course, is more flying like from low to high, high to low. This is what, these are better elements to do because you less risk for deduction. But that being said, focusing on the pirouettes and the turns hitting handstand is very important, because like the elite level, 0 to 10 degrees is 1/10, 10 to 30 is 3, below 30 degrees is 5/10. So you can get big deductions with this. You do want to minimize your turns because of they're so prone to deductions, but it's a very technical element, very important to be able to do these correctly, so that you can minimize your deductions, and they're required. So very highly technical. And then the technique, obviously very important, because if you have the technique on the lead up element, the strong cast or the strong giant or the strong circle, all you got to worry about is timing, rather than the technique. If you have issues on the technique, then you're worrying about the technical issues plus the timing. So if you have your root element going into it plus the pirouette, the turn's good, you just have to focus on your timing. Okay, so we'll get into it. So your outline, I'm going to go through a little bit of teaching methodology, just kind of like a little structure that I use for all elements, but it's relevant for this. The physical preparation, I'm going to show some general physical preparation for the turns, but then also I'm going to be showing physical preparation for each one. We're going to go very systematically from the swing half to the pirouette, and then just building quarter by quarter. Very systematic. It's a simple process, but it's very difficult to implement because it requires a lot of patience and a lot of again, there's a lot of technique involved here. The turn direction, this is kind of a controversial subject. I think everybody kind of has their philosophy on turn direction. I'm going to give you mine. I'm not saying it's the only way. The only thing I will stress that be intentional about the turn direction. And then we'll go into each of the turns. And again, we'll build like quarter by quarter, because that's how I think about the turns. It's not half turns, it's quarter by quarter. And when we do go through the drills and the progressions, I'm focusing on like the things that I think you really need to be doing. You have to be doing these drills and progressions. I'm not saying that's everything, but these are the critical drills and progressions like I have here that everybody should be doing and implementing. There are nuances to how we teach. I think just understand the principles and then apply the drills based off of the principles that I'm talking about. So this is kind of something that I use for skill development. It's not linear, it's a linear model, but this is supposed to be like a circular thing. You're always going back to physical preparation, but the physical preparation to me is the most important piece. Generally speaking, when you have an error on a complex element, you can trace it back to the physical preparation, either strength or flexibility. 95% of the time you can trace it back to that physical preparation. So that's key. And then identify your drills, your progressions, the main ones you need for that. I think a lot of times we get bogged down by by drills. There's a lot of information out there, and sometimes we teaching drills to learn drills. We should be utilizing drills to teach elements. Sometimes those drills don't translate directly into the skill development. So I think it's really important to think about when you're implementing certain drills. I think of it as like putting a puzzle together when you're teaching elements. You know, say for a toe fold, for example, you know, you have your different pieces. You have your toe handstand, which can be broken down itself. You have your full turn. So this simplifies things for me. And then once you have those puzzle pieces together, you can start, you know, spotting the element, number of attempts on that, and then you start backing off. You know, when you're spotting, it should be heavy at first. Spotting on bars is super, super important, especially for the turns, technique and timing. Got to be spotting, and then it also gives confidence for the athlete. You know, and spotting is important. You need to be able to know when to back off, so that when they are able to go on their own, they're ready. You know, so the number of elements attempted alone, the number of successful attempts, and then eventually you have the element mastery. I put mental preparation in here. I think a lot of times the mental blocks, mental issues can be traced back to technical issues or in the early stages of the process. So just keep that in mind. I'm not going to obviously go much into that. That's a whole other topic. But I think it's really important when we start developing skills and start going doing new things. So I just think of it like these elements, and you're fusing the pieces together until you have that complete element. And then as I'm going through, please, if anybody have questions, ask questions rather than wait until the end. I think that we can address things as I'm discussing them. Okay. So, pirouette and turn mastery requirements. Talk about handstand mastery, obviously very important. The one-arm post strength, I'm going to be talking a lot about that. I see a lot of lack of one-arm post strength. When I say post, I mean the arm that's on the bar, you should keep on the bar. So your post is like the one you lift, and the post is your one you stay on the bar. A lot of times when we start doing post strength, you have a shrug in the shoulder. Oops, sorry. You have a shrug in the shoulder. You want to grow when you're lifting your hand. You want to grow. So I'm going to talk a lot about that. And then we can't really add movement to a turn until we have that post strength, because when we start adding movement, then the body breaks down. And again, when the body breaks down, the shoulder closed, the hips closed, the chest out, the head out. Those all shorten the body. And when we shorten the body, again, we cause rotation, which then you have a difficult time hitting that handstand. And then we talk about floor drills progressions, you know, like your back extension prone, back extension handstand, back extension pirouettes. These kind of things should be done in basic lines every day. Floor bar drills and progressions. Again, this should be implemented in not only in your conditioning, but in my opinion, also in your bar training workout. So, you know, you do your floor bar complexes with your turns, and then you also have maybe stations when you're working pirouettes. Everything that's done on the bar should be done on the floor as well, whatever station that may be. Maybe you're working pirouettes, you're doing bounce handstand pirouettes, or kick handstand pirouettes. But I'll show you all this stuff on here. Very important to implement those things. I already talked about turning initiated on the way up, so we do finish in the handstand. Growing as the turn happens, spotting, and again, it's very progressive. For me, it's very progressive, simple approach. Quarter by quarter, we're teaching. Teaching post, being able to keep a strong arm post. We teach a quarter, then a half, then a three-quarter, then a full. Okay, this is just very systematic. And then we'll talk about the principles as we go, and patience. Because I think a lot of times, you know, especially as we start learning that swing half or that pirouette for level 8, well, we got to compete the pirouette, so we've got to do it. So there's already, you know, problems that may be built in. So my suggestion is working that physical preparation before, so we have time to learn those elements. You know, once they learn that handstand mastery, we're starting to work the turns, so that when the time comes to actually do the elements, they're prepared, and we don't have built-in issues when we do have to start competing. And then obviously, you know, we master these things, so then we add the turns to them, and then just a systematic, progressive approach. Okay, physical prep. So first thing, things that, you know, you should be incorporating into your basic lines. Pretty simple stuff, but again, very important to execute correctly. You know, so when we do handstand walks, a lot of times we do handstand walks and we see the hips moving side to side, things like this. We want straight line. You know, a good handstand position is hiding the ears, looking at the hands facing forward, spread fingers, shoulders open, round back, hips flat. If we have breakdown of those things as we're doing any of this stuff, then we need to back off, and maybe you're spotting handstand walks, or maybe she's going to do forward walks, side walks, backward walks. You know, obviously it's progressive. You're not going to just start with this, but they got to master going forward and then start the side. So this is very important, one of the first steps for learning this one arm post strength and the shifting the weight. Okay? Now we're going to mute that. There we go. See, pretty good. Like, we don't want any of those hips, especially when they start going side and then backwards. You see some of the hips moving. You don't want that. And then when they start going backwards, you start seeing the head and the chest coming out. So you want to make sure you're really focused on correcting those things when you're starting doing the basic lines. And she did like 8 steps forward, 8 steps side, backwards, other side, and forward. So something simple you can incorporate into the basic lines. And then on this one, this is watch Louisa on the right versus Audrey on the left. Watch the shape. She's just going to do handstand roll pike up, and then they're going to do pirouettes on the way back. And this was not by design. This is just coincidence. That watch the issues that Louisa has on this one because of the shape. Vice Audrey was very good shape, and she turns very well. So just to show like the dichotomy between the shape and how it affects the pirouette. So a little pike hips and chest out for Louisa on the right. And then watch the flat hips round back for Audrey on the left. And then Slow and Sky, they pretty good on this one. Okay, on the way back, they're going to do turns. And watch the difference between the right and the left. So already she kind of have to shift backwards because kick up handstand was chest out. And then pike hips, you see the shape. So it's very important to be correcting these things as they're going. And then Slow and Sky will go. So again, pike hips cause the issue when you start adding the turn. I was going to scroll through some of this stuff, but it doesn't let me on this. Okay, and then now I like to do handstand and they're pirouetting with spot. They go down the whole way. I make them go both ways, regardless of if they're left twist, left turner or right turner. I still make them go both ways because I want them to learn to shift and be able to post in the shoulder on both arms. And then Sky's going to do the Higgins turns on the left. And this is just, again, I'm going to break it down in a second, but just to show some basic lines that you want to build up to with turns and pirouettes. And so Sky's doing the Higgins on the left over kind of, and then she'll switch to blind. And this also not only working on when they doing good turns and pirouettes, it's also working the shoulder endurance. And that's important because you go to the elite level sometimes where you're going to go stall or full to dismount. It's the end of the routine, so you want that shoulder endurance when you're posting each way. Okay, so we'll move on to that. Okay, so handstand touches, very important. I like straight arms touching the hips rather than this kind of stuff with bent arms here, simply because I want extension all through the body. And we don't want to be, when we start the turning, we don't want to be doing this kind of stuff, reaching across the body and bending arm. Okay, so I think she's going to do a set of 10 here. Good line, again. At first, it's difficult. Maybe you're just pushing and just posting, shifting weight. And then eventually, because if you see any kind of shoulder angle or breakdown in the shoulders, in the hips and stuff, you need to back off because you don't want to start building those things into it. Yes.
So for younger girls who are lower levels, I have them do this. So no, that's not a good idea.
It's just my recommendation that I would teach like this. It's not wrong to do this, no. But I just think it's more if they can focus more when the arms they can focus more on the extension through the body when the arm is straight. That's just what I found. When they do this, a lot of times they break lines either in the head, the shoulders, or the chest. So just my opinion. I'm not saying that's wrong. No, this is just my preference to do this. Obviously, they're not going to turn like this, but I just feel it works better for the extension when they're keeping the arm straight. And then once they're able to do that, it's the same thing with the one-arm hold. Now, when you're doing the one-arm hold, again, you could do this very different way. Spotted. I've also done it against the wall. Lift the arm again. The arm's down. It's not just here. It's down. Another way you can do it: put a floor bar under a low bar or parallel bar or whatever, so that the bar's on the toes or the shins, and they're doing the touches with one arm hold. I also like just shifting the grip like this without sagging. It's pretty challenging actually, but all kinds of variations like that are good. So one of the complexes that we did with this group was they would hold 10 seconds, they'd shift, hold 10 seconds, and then those who did L grip, they would shift, hold 10 seconds, and they would do one arm. So good for one arm post strength, good for shoulder endurance. So it's challenging, especially when you start turning at first, they want to sag. So do it with spot, hold them up so they're feeling that push through the bar. You don't want any sag in the shoulders. This causes lots of problems later on. So, and then they're just switching here, but same process. So it's 10 touches and then 10-second hold is what I have them do here. Okay, floor basics, and this will be incorporated also with the other stuff when we start getting into each turn. Very important to be doing this stuff in the basic lines. The first step I don't have in here, but the first step will be backward roll to prone, obviously, and then a strong back extension roll to handstand. And then you start incorporating the turns. So she's going to go half, then she's going to go full, then she's going to do a Higgins, and then a Higgins full. Okay, so this is kind of what I'm talking about too. Like when you're doing pirouettes, any kinds of turns, they should be able to do on the floor bar, and then whatever we're doing on the bar, that should, you know, because whatever you're doing on the floor, you know, if you have errors on the floor, likely it's the same thing that's going to translate over to the bar. So you really want to make sure that the floor and floor bar work is perfected. And then another good little series with spot, I would recommend at the beginning, especially spot all back extensions and turns. And before I move on, I wanted to mention the back extension blind. Remember, it's a reverse pirouette. A lot of times I see girls trying to go over to do a forward pirouette. It's a reverse pirouette, one arm. So, and spot them on it. But this is a very good complex. You go back extension, hop. You know, the hop is the shift, and she's going to land, and then she's going to go hop quarter and a hop half with the spot. The idea is keeping the body completely tight, tracing a circle with the shoulders and the arms. We're not breaking lines. Okay, very important. So she's going to hop, and the idea is just chest in. The coach is going to turn her, and then she's going to go hop half. And variations of like this, I mean, you can even do hop full like this. So her head's a little down. I prefer looking at the hands, head neutral, but you get the idea. But it's directly related to how she's going to turn on the bar. Now bounce turns, land on the back, bounce full, arms above the head. Again, learning how to rotate that torso and the shoulders without breaking lines. Just another way to reinforce that shape, the body tightness when you're turning. And she's only going one way. I would recommend working on both ways. Okay, so key principles, the one arm strength, shifting the center over the post arm. So when we're doing those one arm touches, we're shifting. And actually the toes end up leading when you're turning if you're doing it correctly. Okay, rather than the chest. A lot of times we have the chest lead. This isn't correct. So working on the shifting over the post arm, center of gravity moving. And then the body tightness, obviously, when you lift the hand off the bar, you want to stay super tight. You want any movement, you want if anything, you're going to grow through the shoulder post. And then body tightness when they're turning, which, you know, the bounce full, the back extension hop, all that stuff is working on that body tightness when they're turning. Okay, so turn direction. I'm going to try to go through this quickly. Determining the gymnast direction twist, very important. You got to be intentional. Don't just say, hey, go whichever way feels right. Generally speaking, this is not all the time, but generally speaking, putting that right foot down, right hand down is going to be, so that's a right round off. You're going to want to twist right. Now, I know that a right round off is actually a left turn, but when you put the right hand down, you want to twist right. If you put the left hand down first, twist left. And this is not just for the turn direction on the bars, but if you're going to do a kazamatsu, that's the direction you want to go. If you want to do 1.5 step out, you're coming out on your round, your right hand, or you're twisting right, and you're coming down your right hand. So you're able to do that. Very difficult to turn and then go left. So, so you want to think about that. So just being intentional about that. And there's a couple tests that you can use when they're little. These aren't foolproof or anything, just some ideas to get the turn direction, especially if you see like, okay, she's a right cartwheel, right round off, but she's having trouble turning right. You can kind of figure it out. So putting some lines on the ground, doing jump half turns. Generally, like, you can see which way they want, because they'll be able to do a jump half and they'll stay on the line pretty much when they go in their natural turn direction. And then when you tell them to go the other way, they'll be a little off. Again, it doesn't always work out like this, but just some general idea. And she's just an example of something you can try. And then just say, don't tell them which way to turn, just say, hey, fall back and follow prone position. And they'll fall in that natural way. But preferably speaking, if they're a right roundoff, they're a right twister. If they're a left roundoff, they're a left twister. Okay, so a left twist is a left posting blind change. So the left hand stays on the bar. A left twist is a right posting pirouette. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Okay, so the left, so if you're doing a blindfold, you're doing blind on the left, pirouette on the right, that's a left twist. If you're doing a blindfold right, right post, left pirouette. So the first element that's taught is that swing half, which I don't really think is necessarily ideal, just because we have a lot of, when they're trying to get amplitude, they throw the chest out. So I think we need to move to like a giant half as quickly as possible on that. But get them to go with their left twister, posting on the left arm for the swing half. Make sure that happens. The second element that you're going to teach is the pirouette. So that would be, so if they're a left twister, they're going to do the pirouette on the right. But the caveat there is that if sometimes when they're a left twist, they feel comfortable posting on that left arm, that's the strong arm. When they're level 7 going to level 8, it's difficult for them to do that right pirouette. So I have taught a blind and a pirouette on the same post arm, the strong post arm. And I've never had difficulty when I go giant fold just to go the other way. Also for the Healy, it's much easier to post on the strong arm. So if you're doing a blind on the left, which is the opposite direction of the twist. So if you're doing a left blind, it's easier to teach that Healy and the Ono on that left arm, even though it's the right twist on the Healy. Hope that makes sense, not confusing. Okay. So again, you gotta teach the swing half for the compulsory and for tops. But my recommendation is to move to a giant half as soon as possible because, again, I'm just seeing like you're doing swings. A lot of times we see this arch position, like this stuff on the swing half because they're trying to get amplitude. So I would say sacrifice amplitude for technique, especially at the early stages, because when you see these blind changes, like pulling on the bar, swinging over the bar, later on, this is a product, I think, of this swing half trying to get amplitude this way. So my recommendation is moving as fast as we can to the giant half from cast handstand and working that post, the quarters, and I'll show you later, and the giant halves. This is my recommendation. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this swing half. Okay, so we'll go pirouettes. So a lot of floor bar work. Okay, so she's going to do 1, 2, 3. The angle's not great, but she's going to shift and lift a little bit, shift, and then she's going to turn. We're just going to systematically do. She's going to do a hand turn, then a quarter, and then she's going to do a half. So shift, 1, 2, 3, and shift. Now when they shift too, they want to shift and learn how to put the hand under the center. Okay, a lot of times they want to go here, it's a big travel. So you want to put that post right under the center. Now it's a little challenging too sometimes with posting it right here because they want to close the shoulder. So we want to work that extension when you get the hand right under the center. And then she's going to go quarter. So 1, 2, 3, post quarter. And here's that, tracing a circle with the hand on the shoulder, not moving across the body. Very important. And then we just move the pirouette. 1, 2, 3, and turn. And again, we're shifting weight, hand under the center, turn, making sure the body's correct, and not sagging as she's turning or turning the hand. And then we would move to spotted pirouettes on the floor. And again, I make them go both ways. I would generally do 5. She's doing 3 here, but I would generally do 5 each way. And then we'll follow that's for next one. Okay, and then stations where, as you're working the pirouette on the real bar, it's not easy to put a side station. Say, hey, go work these pirouettes. Do a pirouette with spot, go down on the floor, kick and handstand pirouette. And I would recommend trying to hit on the wrong side, and making sure that they're not missing so short that, of course they don't want to go so short, but you want to make sure they're trying to go handstand, control it, and then they're going to land on the back so that turn happens on the way up and they finish in the handstand. And I would work it from a straddle as well, because pirouette's much easier from the straddle cast. There is a buzz that in the elite compulsory they're going to allow that straddle cast into the pirouette. So I think that's happening. So working from the straddle is much easier than doing the cast into the pirouette. Another variation, bounce handstands. So she's going to go bounce, and she's going to go bounce. Again, same exact process. bounce hand under switch, bounce hand under quarter, and then bounce pirouette. Another setup I really like is if you put that bar right up against the wall, they have to go bounce pirouette before they touch the wall, and then push pirouette back, bounce pirouette back. And it's self-correcting. So these self-correcting things are good because they see if they do something wrong, they're not going to make it. But there's a lot of variations of this. Like when you're doing the quarter, I've seen coaches put a bar, perpendicular, or put a mat perpendicular. All these things are good. These are just, the base things. And then, but all variations of this kind of work is good. Okay, and then we go pirouettes with spot. That's not a great video, but. And then I would work up to 5 with spot. At least 3, but working up to 5. Focusing on the shape, spotting a lot. Okay. And then your final product. Finish that pirouette so then you can do something out of it. Yeah, all the way up. Okay. Now we go reverse pirouette with blind, reverse pirouette, obviously from cast. It's the same motion for the blind change. Blind is just you going to under grip instead of to mixed grip and switch. So first step, getting that back extension roll half. Good shape, showed earlier. And then it's the same process as you would do on the pirouette. You're going 1, 2, 3, post, 1, 2, 3, quarter. Actually, she didn't do the post, but I would do 1, 2, 3, learn that post. Obviously, you're doing that when you learn the pirouette. So then you're going quarter, tracing the circle, 1, 2, 3, tracing the circle, holding the line. What she does when she finishes that quarter, you want to make sure that the line from the hands to the toes are straight. You don't want any movement in the hip. Sometimes the hip comes out. So that all work when you're doing the one-arm handstand stuff, making sure that the straight line, if they shift the weight properly over that post arm, they won't need to feel like they got to counterbalance their body by doing this. They'll be right over that arm. That's a good one. And then doing reverse pirouette, going from like you would on a cast, and then also working that from like a straddle cast. Kind of skip. And then again, tracing the circle, not cutting across the arm. Then of course, going to spotting. But I mean, I didn't put in the floor bar stuff, but of course you would do cast hand or kick handstand, reverse pirouette to the stomach. Same process that you would work for the forward pirouette. Okay, see her chest out a little bit. She's not shifting her weight, so coach had to kind of push her over. So chest is out slightly. But these aren't like perfect pirouettes, but just to show you the process. But again, I would work up to 5 on this, working on endurance, but working on really focusing on the technique on it. And then we're doing giant half, same process. Okay, we go to mixed grip there. And blind. Then you just turn the grip. A lot of times when they want to turn the grip, they want to reach early here like this. If you're going giant halves on the bar, on the floor bar, they can do pretty good. But then when they start trying to go under grip, sometimes you'll see them trying to reach across the body and reach here. So you want to avoid that. You want to have them go here as long as possible and then turn it. Delay that wrist turn. And that seems to help with getting through the post arm. But it's really key that they're not doing this kind of stuff, because when they start reaching across the body, the shoulders are going to close. And then we would go giant. So this is a little different than just doing the 1, 2, 3. You're kind of simulating the giant here. And the spot is very important, because on the spot, you want to spot hips going this way, not front forward, just to mention, spot here when you're rounding against for the giant. But I think this is good because it's going to teach that simulation of the giant and then that early turn. Let me go one more. So we go in giant, post. You can't really see the post on too well, but post quarter, holding that line. Then you go giant, post half. Okay, and then again, whatever we're doing on the floor bar was drop. Sorry about that. So whatever we're doing on the floor bar with spot, we're doing on the mats. Okay, just simple. Kick handstand, glide change, land on the back. Okay, for spotting these, so we're starting, go on the bar for your giant half, starting to learn the giant half. The process is you do just like on the floor bar, giant up post, holding them, giant up post quarter, giant up post mixed grip. It's key that you're doing, I would do sets of 3, so you're doing sets of 3 maybe twice. Not just get up there one time. Again, this is teaching a little bit of shoulder endurance and technique at the same time. So this is coming from a toe handstand, but just to show the quarter turn. Okay, good line on that. So, one more. So if you watch your line, see, straight, from hands to feet, and then all it is from there is finishing that turn, which you should be able to do pretty easily. But the process again wouldn't be just do one quarter, you would go post, quarter, and then you would turn. And we'll do that like here. So she's gonna giant post. She's 2 legs, she showed pressure first and then she went. I think that was better. And then the half. And then doing maybe twice, 2 to 3 times on that sequence. The key thing here though is, you need to make sure the giant or the circle or whatever's going into it is powerful and effective, because the turn has to be weightless. So if you have an effective tap, the turn's weightless and you can get off the bar at the right time, or so it's early enough so then you can hit that handstand. If you don't have an effective tap or you have chest out on the giant, you're going to end up having pressure on the bar and then trying to do the turn, which is difficult to do, and it's going to cause rotation and it's going to cause you to miss that handstand. So having that effective strong cast or the strong giant or the strong circle into it is going to help you be able to be weightless as you do the turn and be able to control better and push through the bar more. Oh, this is just another gymnast doing it, so just watch that. She does a little bit better on that. Whoop. Okay, where'd I go? She does a little bit better on the post. She initiates it a little bit earlier. So she posts slightly arched, but and then she'll post quarter. Do a pretty good time, pretty good line on there. And then half. And then see, she did a couple sequences there. Okay, and then in product, again, she's gonna do 3 here. I would do 5 giant halves. Try to build up to 5 giant halves. But good line, slightly short. You want to hit that handstand every time, but see each one too, a little bit shorter, a little bit shorter. We'll try to get everyone to handstand. Okay. And drive full. So again, same process. We're just gonna add a half turn here. Chest in. Yeah, she's a little bit past because her chest came out slightly. And then we're going to do the giant, and here we'll turn the hand. Then next phase, you're going to do the 3/4. So half, 3/4. And then rotate back. And then again, I'll make them go turn back. So they're going to turn one way, I always make them turn back. Obviously, they're never going to go the wrong way on the bar. But again, this just teaches shoulder strength and good position when we're turning and shifting weight. And then this was the pirouette drill, the pirouette sequence, but she's also going to do full turns in this sequence in this complex. And she'll do full turn one way, full turn the other.
You stress a hand slide when you're blinding?
Yeah, I mean, if they have, so there's 2 approaches. I mean, I have, so if you're light, again, with that tap on the giant, if you have a light, kind of weightless when you do it, the hand shift is very easy. You shift underneath on the blind change. There's a number of ways you can do it. Like when you're doing a giant, you can just teach them to shift over, I've done that approach, but I have not done that approach too, and generally speaking, they kind of naturally end up doing that. But it is smart to teach that shift under, because then again, your turn radius is a lot shorter when you do that. To do that, you have to have a super effective tap again, super effective tap when you want to shift under. If you don't, it's not going to happen. Yeah, I think it's smart to work that, and then to initiate that, you can do the giant, just shift over, or when you're doing the toe handstand, starter handstands, when you're working that to try to initiate the turn, doing that and then just shifting the hand over, both hands on the bar, and then eventually they can get it under. So I've done both ways, but I think naturally if they have an effective tap, they're able to, they naturally kind of shift under the center pretty easily.
Do you initiate that at the top or as they're coming down?
As they're coming up.
Okay, so
yeah, as
normal, and then when they come up, they're gonna pull in.
Yeah, so they just kind of shift under, not both, like learn it to shift both hands, but then when they're gonna go for the turn itself, it shifts that post hand under their center.
Okay.
Yeah, it's as they come up into the turn, right? Like as they're turning pretty much.
And do you do like just giants that way?
You can just shift and then shift, giant shift, you can do. Yeah, one time I remember we did, we kind of had a contest, I think it was at a camp, we had a contest where they would do toe circles and see how far they could shift over. You know, just because you're weightlifting, you shift it, just to learn that kind of shift. So you can be intentional about it, but again, if they have the effective toe circle, the entry into it, it kind of becomes natural. Yeah. Okay, and the floor bar full, same. And again, for the blind change, you want to shift. When you do the blind, you want the hand to come as close as you can without breaking line. Because again, the shorter radius that you can turn, the more efficient the turn is going to be. If you have to travel a long ways, more difficult, the body's going to break down. And then eventually, once you're able to do the giant half, the blind change, giant full, I think it's really important to implement basic sequences into your basic days. We did, this was the elite group, I think we did this probably 3 or 4 times a week. Some variation of a turn. It doesn't have to be what I did, but some variations where you're doing giant halves, blind full, blind change. You know, just to emphasize, I mean, again, it's very important to be able to hit these in handstands, but also you want to be able to do sequences so you're building that endurance and strength. So she's going to do giant half, then giant full. You're going to go, maybe 10 degrees at first. So it's very systematic, and then eventually they'll be able to turn the hand if the flexibility and stuff is there in the wrist and the shoulders. But it is like, the pirouette, the Higgins can be a replacement, and the Higgins full, you get the 360, can be a replacement for, the toe folds or the starter folds if they have difficulty with that, because this is a little different. You are going to show pressure on the bar before you turn on the Higgins. So if you got a good toe handstand and have a good shape coming out, you could do the Higgins full. So it's just an option, a variation. It doesn't do anything it's the same value as doing a regular blindfold 360, but it's an option to do. But here she's going to do on the giant. Obviously, you would spot a bunch of these before. So she's just back turning there. We'll go back, so. And then the L grip, learning the L grip kind of giant and shaping and stuff for that is obviously a whole nother topic, but just to show the Higgins turn. And then this one's going to be, this is a variation of turn. She's going to go toe half Higgins, I think, on this one. Yeah, toe half. And then, so this is the prep for the Healy. So the Healy then is a pirouette Higgins. Okay, but even look on this, just to give an example of deductions that you would see on something like this. The toe, just the toe half. So the toe half, that's probably a 1/10 there, and then a half Higgins, there's a 3/10. So just on those little angle deductions for elite, this would be quite high deductions, and then a Higgins, probably 1/10 for the Higgins. The 4/10 just for those little turns. So just things to keep in mind as you're planning routines and things like this on what to work, because it's very important to, if you're going to learn, you're going to do these kind of things to learn the long-term, or to have a plan and know your long-term process on this stuff. and then Healy. So this is the pirouette to the Higgins. And then spotting the Healy. And then she does Ono out, but, so the pirouette Higgins, and you just keep the hand up. But again, the post strength, super, super important on this stuff. And shape throughout. And then eventually on the floor by themselves. Of course, then you're spotting a bunch on the bar. And this is very similar, it's just she's gonna do blind change, and then to the Healy. See, that one probably be no deduction on the Healy, but just to show like the post strength in the line. And then this one, she has this would not be a routine for today because it has tons of turning, but to give an example of a lot of turning elements in one routine, but a lot of angle deductions on this. See, that's a little over probably 3. And then TOEFL, she's gonna way over here. And this is somebody, she was very good at turning. We did a lot of work with turning, but then you put it in sequence and routines and it becomes maybe, gets difficult. So, a lot of turning on that one. Okay, so the Ono is just obviously the opposite way as the Healy. The same video, but to show. So the Ono is going to be from L grip pirouette out to blind change. But you can see how everything kind of builds, like from the very beginning. You learn that strong pirouette, that strong blind change at the beginning, then you kind of open doors to be able to do other stuff long term. And then just in sequence what we worked on. And you can see her. So this is when she first started working it, and you can see at the beginning. She's showing pressure before the turns, which is not ideal. You want to be going on the way up light so you can do a nice light turn on these. But everything we did with turns was in sequence. So we're working on even pirouettes, you're doing 5. Giant halves, you're doing 5. Giant fulls, 3 to 5. But everything's in sequence. So you're working lines, you're working numbers, and you're working good shape and shoulder strength. So, but I think the main thing, the most important thing when you're learning and teaching the beginning stages of it is just not rushing on this stuff. Because if you rush and you have, again, if you have issues on the pirouettes or the blinds, and then you try to, put a toe handstand in front of it, and these aren't perfected, then you just compound the issues and you kind of plateau your skill learning at some point. So taking the time and being patient with, okay, learn the perfect blind, learn the perfect toe handstand, and then we put them together. I know it's not always happened like this. You gotta compete, you gotta put skills together and stuff. But if you can be patient and plan early, so you're doing all that physical prep. Again, it always goes back to physical prep, because I think the process is super simple, but the physical preparation and implementation I think is the difficult part. And being patient enough to say, okay, we're not going to do this until these pieces are good enough to put together.
Talking about physical prep, before you have them do Heelys, do you have them just hold handstand and L grip?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's what I was saying. Like that's a whole another topic for the L grip. I mean, I would talk about before they did Heelys, they would know L grip giant.
Do you ever teach mixed grip at all? Is there any point to teaching mixed grip?
Mixed grip.
Mixed L grip?
No, I never have. No, I haven't. I haven't felt the necessity to really, because when I've taught L grip, I've taught it at the same exact time as the front giant. And the process is, I mean, again, it's a different topic, but low bar, tuck giant, no tap. So you do front giant, and then you see if they can do L grip, and it's the same exact process as the front giant. It's the same exact element. It's just different grip. But I've never done mixed grip, no, because I think in mixed grip you might have to do more of like not a heck tap, and I always want to teach a heck tap. I don't know if you could do it, maybe you could, I don't know, but possible, I guess. But I haven't done it, no.
The way you teach it seems like you wouldn't even need to. So
yeah, no, so I would teach that tuck giant, and then I would introduce the tap. But of course, before you do a Healy, then you would be working on the Higgins and the L grip giants, pretty much same time, I mean. But I mean, the process starts, I think the turning process starts once they master handstand. Start doing the one arm strength and the small turns right when they're able to do perfect handstand. But obviously, if they don't have perfect handstand, then you're gonna compound the problems when you lift the hand. So it's like, again, that's for me, it's just very step-by-step, methodical, one thing at a time, kind of thing. But if you don't master one step, if you don't have a strong post arm and you try to do a turn, obviously, there's gonna be issues. Or you don't have a good blind and you try to put a toe in front of it, there's gonna be issues. So you really want only one variable, and that's timing. Because if the technique is good and you start putting things together, then you're gonna only have one variable, which is timing. But if you have, a shape problem on the toe hand, or say a drop problem on the toe handstand, a shape problem on the pirouette, and you learn it like that, then your timing is good for the bad technique, and then you correct your technique, and all of a sudden your timing's off. So you're just introducing too many variables into the learning process. So this, to me, this process just kind of keeps it a little bit simple. I know it's pretty repetitive. It is repetitive. Every single element is pretty much taught the same. But you got to master those certain steps in order to be effective on that. When you master to keep it simple, master the simple so you can do the complex. If you can't do the simple, then you try to add things together again, just because there's a bunch of problems. So. Yeah, that's about all I have. If anybody has any other questions, please feel free to ask.
What's your philosophy on thumbs in general?
Thumbs. Over the bar, when you're on top of the bar, your thumbs are over the bar. When you're under, you can do either here. But when you're pirouetting and turning, you've got to have your thumbs on the bar. You're casting, it's like you can control much better like this than you can like this. So thumbs over when you're turning and with the Heelys, okay, it's going to be a little different. When Audrey did it, her hands were side. When Ira did it, her hands were here. I think Sky had her thumbs around the bar. That's a little different because it's a little bit of a lightweight, and sometimes they can't do thumbs around the bar on the L grip. But pirouettes, blind change, when you're on top of the bar, thumbs should be around the bar. So like you're doing kip cast, if you're gonna kip with the thumbs on top of the bar, you need to shift. When you do that weightless shift, put your thumbs over the bar for the cast. You can control a handstand. And then turn the hand, thumbs around the bar, and turn thumbs around the bar. That's a good question. I'm going to add it to the next time I do this, because that's important, super important. Yeah, I see a lot of times with the kids over the bar, like this, trying to turn. It's like trying to stand with no toes. And they fall. It's very difficult. But yeah. Anything else? All right. Thank you. I'm married.
Will you take a look at the picture of the left picture?
Yeah, which one?
Hey, Matt.
Oh, God.
It's good to see you, my friend.